Something strange is happening in the WNBA, and no one in power is telling the full story. Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest draw, most talked about rookie, and ticket-selling machine, has been mysteriously sidelined for weeks. Officially, it's a groin injury. Unofficially, it's a cover-up. And no, this isn't conspiracy theory territory, this is hard business math. We're talking millions of dollars willingly burned by the Indiana Fever just to keep one player off the court. When you follow the numbers, the pattern becomes too big to ignore. This isn't about player safety. It's not about recovery. It's about silence. Calculated, expensive, deliberate silence. Because healthy franchises don't throw away revenue like this. They protect their stars, not hide them. So, what's going on behind the curtain? What are they so desperate to avoid that they'd rather lose over $20 million than put Caitlin Clark back on the floor? Stick with this investigation, because by the end, you won't just understand what's happening. You'll see exactly why the Fever are risking their financial future to keep Clark invisible. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's just get one thing straight. Caitlin Clark isn't just a rookie, she's a walking economy. When she steps onto the court, the numbers skyrocket. Ticket prices, viewership, merch sales, everything jumps. But the moment she's out, the system collapses. Before her injury, Indiana Fever ticket prices averaged $127 a seat. The moment she disappeared from the lineup, those same tickets dropped to $74. That's not a dip. That's a 42% nosedive. And it gets worse. Across 13 games without her, the Fever have been playing to half-empty arenas. With Clark, attendance hits 17,000. Without her, just 8,500. That's a loss of over $1.5 million per home game, just from ticket sales. Add up all the games she's missed, and you're looking at a direct revenue hit of nearly $20 million. And we're not even talking about merch, parking, food, or sponsor money. All of that tanks too. No team, not in the WNBA, not in any league, casually accepts $20 million in losses, unless something much bigger is on the line. This isn't a minor injury. It's not about growing tightness or getting back in rhythm. Those are smokescreens. Because the Indiana Fever have seen the numbers. They know exactly what Clark brings in. They've run the same calculations we have, and they're still keeping her out. That's not medical caution. That's strategic damage control. Think about it. When an organization intentionally sacrifices millions per game, they're not managing a player injury, they're managing a crisis. One so explosive, they'd rather tank their own revenue stream than risk it going public.
It's the business equivalent of pulling the fire alarm in a crowded stadium. Loud, disruptive, and incredibly expensive, but sometimes necessary to stop a larger disaster. So what's the disaster they're scrambling to contain? Because make no mistake, this is a business decision, not a medical one. The Fever's front office isn't acting like a team managing an athlete's rehab. They're acting like a company in full-blown crisis mode, stretching the timeline, spinning press conferences, and hiding behind health protocols that keep changing week to week. And here's where it gets even stranger. The longer Clark stays out, the deeper the financial hole gets. That's not just bad management. That's a calculated sacrifice, one that only makes sense if what they're protecting is even more damaging than the money they're losing. So what exactly are they buying time for? The answer starts to become clearer when you look at what changed and who disappeared just before this all began. Let's break down the timeline, because this is where the whole story starts to crack. Earlier in the season, Caitlin Clark took hits, got banged up, and still hit the court without hesitation. No long ramp-up, no monitoring periods, no weeks of practice. She got cleared and she played immediately. The organization didn't blink. But now, suddenly they've turned into medical perfectionists. Now it's, she needs rhythm. She's building strength. We're being cautious. And that would make sense if her scans showed something serious, but they didn't. According to ESPN's Holly Rowe, specialists found no additional damage in her recent evaluations. None. So why the shift in tone? Why the sudden obsession with protocols? Let's make this even clearer. Clark was thrown back into the lineup earlier in the season with no prep. Now, despite clean scans, they're insisting she needs weeks of practice before returning. That's not cautious, that's convenient. And the timing? Even more suspicious. As soon as the DeWanna Bonner situation exploded behind the scenes, we'll get to that soon, the Fever's tone flipped. Medical updates became PR statements. Straight answers disappeared. Suddenly, every injury update was vague, overly polished, and weirdly defensive. If this was really about health, the logic would be consistent, but it's not. It's fractured, reactive, and filled with contradictions. One week she's progressing well, the next she's weeks away. And all of this while she's traveling with the team, sitting on the bench, smiling in front of cameras. It's not an injury timeline, it's a delay tactic. The kind of tactic you use when you don't want your star player anywhere near a microphone, a headline, or a controversy. And that brings us to the one person whose every word is carefully calculated and carefully avoiding the truth. When a coach stops sounding like a coach and starts sounding like a corporate spokesperson, you know something's off. And that's exactly what's happening with Stephanie White.
Go back and listen to her press conferences. It's not just what she's saying, it's how she's saying it. Fragmented sentences, evasive language, a constant fallback to vague phrases like "we're keeping things internal" or "navigating the situation." That's not medical transparency, that's message control. And here's the thing, when Clark was dealing with minor issues earlier in the season, White was blunt. She's fine, she's ready, she's playing. There was no over-explaining, no extra layers of corporate speak, just straightforward coaching talk. Now, every sentence feels like it was reviewed by legal and polished by PR. You don't get updates anymore, you get damage control. And every time a reporter pushes for specifics, White tightens up. The body language shifts, the tone turns defensive. It's not confidence, it's containment. Let's call it what it is. She's not giving injury reports, she's managing an image. She's not coaching from the sidelines, she's running interference for a front office in crisis mode. And the proof? Just look at how she handled previous injuries versus now. Earlier, zero practice, zero hesitation, just play. Now, extended rhythm development, multi-week timelines, arbitrary protocols that sound more like stalling tactics than recovery steps. Even her latest comments about expanding the footprint and adding cadence between games. What does that even mean? It's corporate jargon that says nothing but sounds like something. That's not how you talk about a player's rehab. That's how you talk when you're trying to say anything other than the truth. Because the truth might connect directly to something much bigger and much more damaging than anyone in that locker room wants to admit. And the deeper you dig, the more this leads back to one thing they're terrified to talk about. This is where the story takes a sharp turn, from strange to explosive. Because just before Caitlin Clark was pulled from the spotlight, something else happened that barely made headlines, but should have. DeWanna Bonner, a veteran, a respected presence in the locker room, and one of the most experienced players on the Indiana Fever roster. She left the team suddenly, just 9 games into the season, citing personal reasons. No warming, no press tour, no send-off, just gone. Then, barely 2 weeks later, she signs with the Phoenix Mercury. Now here's the part that makes this more than just a player switch. Her departure happened right as Caitlin Clark's injury timeline began. And guess what game the Fever were desperate to avoid any headlines around? That's right, Phoenix Mercury, Bonner's new team, the revenge game. It was the perfect storm for drama, a returning veteran facing her old team, fans demanding answers, media circling, and all eyes on Clark. The pressure would have been massive, and the questions unavoidable. So what did the Fever do? They made a business calculation. Don't risk the firestorm, Don't let Clark take the court. Don't let reporters near her. Don't give anyone a chance to ask what really went down in that locker room. Instead, keep her benched, take the $2 million hit, control the narrative, avoid the headlines. Because whatever happened with Bonner, whatever forced her out mid-season and sent her sprinting to another franchise, was serious enough that the Fever were willing to sacrifice everything to avoid dragging it back into the spotlight. And if that sounds like overkill, consider this. They didn't just pull Clark from that game. They extended her absence, stretched her recovery, changed injury protocols. They didn't just avoid one controversy, they built an entire wall around it. And that wall cost them tens of millions in lost revenue, which tells us one thing very clearly. Whatever they're protecting is more dangerous to the franchise than even the truth getting out. If there's one moment that shatters the official narrative, it's this: Caitlin Clark playing soccer. While the Indiana Fever insists she's still recovering from a groin injury, too fragile for basketball, too early for a return, footage surfaces of Clark casually participating in a charity soccer event, running, kicking, stretching, using the exact same muscle groups they claim are under careful rehabilitation. Let that sink in. A groin injury is one of the most sensitive and limiting for any athlete. You don't jog, pivot, or kick without risking re-injury. And yet, here's Clark, swinging that leg like nothing's wrong. In public, on camera, with a smile. So what are fans supposed to believe? The visual evidence that shows an elite athlete looking fully mobile, or the organization's carefully worded injury reports insisting she's not game ready? This isn't a gray area. It's a contradiction. A massive, undeniable, logic-shattering contradiction. If she's healthy enough to run drills in cleats on turf, she's healthy enough to suit up on hardwood. And if she's not, then why is she being allowed to move like that at all? This is where the trust starts to break down. Because this isn't just about sports medicine anymore. It's about controlling perception. Keeping her visible enough to calm fans, but inactive enough to avoid real scrutiny. Clark becomes a prop in a carefully staged production. Courtside smiles, press shots, interviews about team morale, everything except what really matters: playing the game. And here's the most damning part. If the organization is comfortable showing her off in public, using her to keep fans engaged, but refuses to put her on the floor where the money is made, then it's not a question of health. It's a question of strategy. They're not protecting her body. They're protecting something else entirely. At this point, the pattern is too deliberate to ignore. This isn't a medical story. It's a strategy playbook, and the Fever are executing it by the page. Caitlin Clark isn't just benched. She's been repositioned, turned from athlete into image. She travels with the team, she sits courtside, she shows up in cameras, high-fives teammates, waves to fans. Every visual screams, everything's fine. But she's not playing, and she's not answering real questions. Why? Because that's the point.
This is narrative management at the highest level. The organization needs her visible enough to keep fans engaged, but silent enough to stay out of the headlines. They need her present, but inactive, seen, but not heard. She's the face of the franchise, but only from the sidelines. It's the perfect illusion. Keep hope alive by showing her face, but don't risk her getting mic'd up, questioned, or caught in the media whirlwind surrounding Bonner's exit. Her presence reassures fans, sells future games, and sustains sponsorships. But her absence keeps the real story buried. And this is where the strategy becomes even more disturbing. They're using her, not as a player, but as a buffer, as a brand, as controlled optics, a human billboard. While fans wait and wonder, the organization delays, distracts, and deflects, all while hemorrhaging millions they know they can recoup the moment she steps back on court. But they're choosing not to. Why? Because the real crisis isn't on the injury report. It's in the locker room, in the timeline, in the fallout of what really happened between players, coaches, and leadership.
And until that story cools off, until the public stops asking questions, Clark stays sidelined. Not because she's hurt, but because she's too valuable to risk saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. This isn't sports medicine. This is corporate crisis choreography. And the deeper you look, the more obvious it becomes. The fever are playing chess, but the board is built on deception. When you zoom out, the numbers tell the real story. Every game Caitlin Clark doesn't play, that's millions in lost ticket revenue, merch sales, broadcast views, and social engagement. Her absence doesn't just hurt, it bleeds. Industry insiders estimate that over $20 million has already slipped through Indiana's fingers in the form of empty seats, canceled appearances, and stalled momentum. But for what? Let's be clear, no franchise gives up that kind of money over a minor growing tweak. No marketing team signs off on keeping the most valuable player in women's basketball off the court unless something bigger and riskier is in play. All signs point to a calculated decision. Lose millions now to protect something they fear even more. Maybe it's a fractured locker room. Maybe it's a legal situation. Maybe it's fallout from whatever happened with Bonner, White, or league leadership. We may not know the full truth yet, but we know the cost of hiding it. Because this isn't just about one player. It's about control over the narrative, the media, and the future of the WNBA. And that's the chilling part. If a franchise is willing to sacrifice tens of millions to keep one story buried, imagine what else they're hiding. Imagine what it means for other players. Imagine how deep this goes. Caitlin Clark was supposed to be the spark that changed women's basketball forever. Instead, she's become the center of a strategy designed to delay, distract, and deflect, no matter the cost. And if they're willing to take a $20 million loss just to keep her quiet, you have to ask yourself, what truth is so dangerous it's worth that kind of silence? By now, one thing is clear. This story was never just about basketball. It's about silence, control, power plays behind closed doors, the kind that cost millions and still get approved. The Indiana Fever had every reason to keep Caitlin Clark front and center. She was their golden ticket, their one-way ride to relevance, revenue, and record-breaking ratings. And they benched her. Not for a torn ligament, not for a season-ending injury, but for something they won't even talk about. So let's flip the question. What are they protecting that's worth more than $20 million in revenue? Because that's the number we're working with. That's the silence they paid for. That's the mystery we're still not allowed to solve. And now it's your turn. Do you buy the injury excuse? Do you think this was really just bad luck or something far more calculated? Could this be about locker room conflict, leadership missteps, hidden tensions that no press release dares to touch? Drop your theory in the comments, no matter how wild, because when silence costs this much, someone's hiding something. And the more we dig, the harder it gets to keep the truth buried.